Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to look at how we can add sorting to a hot chocolate GraphQL API. You'll notice over here on the left hand side that I have a pre-created GraphQL API. It contains an application DB context with a DB set for authors and a DB set for books. We have an author entity which contains ID, name and a collection of books. And we have a book entity which contains ID, title, and also the author ID foreign key. So that's our application DB context. We also have a migrations folder which contains our database migrations using Entity Framework Core. In the app settings.development.json, we have the default connection string, and this is pointing to my local host Postgres database. However, feel free to use an alternative database in your project. We then have a mutation class which contains two mutations, one to add author and one to add book. We then have a query class which contains a query to get authors and a query to get books. And last but not least, in our program's startup, you can see there that we are adding our application DB context into the service provider. We're also adding the GraphQL server along with our mutation type and query type. We're also registering the application DB context with GraphQL so that it can be used in our mutations and queries. Towards the bottom of the startup, just above the app.run, we are migrating the database, and if there are no authors, we're adding authors. And if there are no books, then we are adding books. 9 authors and 9 books, just to provide us with some seed data for the purposes of this sample. So what we're going to do now is go on ahead and add sorting functionality into this GraphQL API. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that we have the appropriate NuGet packages. If we right click on API, click on Manage NuGet Packages, and you can see that we have our 2 Entity Framework Core packages, and we have our 2 hot chocolate packages. It's important to note that the hot chocolate packages should use the same version. We have our ASP.NET Core package, and we also have our Data Entity Framework package. Now, for the GraphQL sorting functionality, we need to make sure that we have the hot chocolate data package. And as you can see here, under the dependencies of the Data Entity Framework package, it's automatically depending on that hotchocolate.data package. So we don't need to explicitly specify that NuGet package if we don't want to. So what we're going to do now, inside the startup, where we have our call to add GraphQL server, we're going to add sorting, like so, alongside our mutation type, query type, etc. Add in the call there to add sorting functionality into GraphQL. And what we can then do is open up our query class, and we can add the use sorting attribute to both of our queries. So that's simply this use sorting attribute above both of those 2 methods. And that means that sorting functionality will be available for both of these queries, both authors and books. So in order to see that in action, what we can do is we can build and run the API. Give that a few seconds just to spin up the API. And inside a browser, if we go to /GraphQL, that will open up the Banana Cake Pop editor. And what we will do is create a document. We will apply the defaults, make sure that we have the latest schema changes. And what we are going to do is now create a query, like so. And this will return us a list of book titles. So if we now run that query, execute that operation, you can see there that we get a list back of all of the books that we have stored in our database. Now what we're going to do is sort these books. So if we come into our books query, add some brackets in, you'll notice that we have an order parameter. and this takes an array of book sort inputs. So what we're going to do is specify that order parameter. We're going to use the array syntax, and then we're going to initialize an object, and we're going to say title and then ASC, ASC being the abbreviation for ascending. If we now run this again, you'll notice that we get our books back from the database, this time in ascending order by the book's title. Now, as you may have seen, the order parameter accepts an array of sort inputs, and that's because you may wish to sort by multiple properties. At the moment, in this scenario, we are simply just sorting by title. However, what if you had two books that had the same title? You may wish to secondarily sort by an additional property. And that's as simple as specifying an additional input in this array. So what we can do here is we can specify author. Then inside here we can specify name. And once again we can specify either ascending or descending. If I specify name as ascending and run it again, you'll notice there's no difference in the response because we don't have any books with the same title. But if we did, then it would sort all of the books in ascending order, and then for books with the same title, it would then secondarily sort those books by its ascending order using the name of the author of the book. And you can specify as many order inputs as you like there, 1, 2, 3, etc. And that will give you the option to sort primarily, secondarily, tertiary, and so on, so forth. In that sample there, we're sorting first of all by title, and then secondarily by the name of the author of the book. What we're going to do now, though, is take it a step further and customize the book sort type. So if we go back into our GraphQL API, if we just stop it for now, and what we're going to do is create a new class in the project, and we're going to call this book sort type. Now this class is going to extend the sort input type class, and that's going to be of type book, since this is going to customize the sort options that are available on the book type. What we're going to want to do then is override the configure method. And what we're going to do is say descriptor.field. We're then going to use the selector with that lambda to select the title field of the book type. And then we're going to specify ignore. And what this is going to do essentially is mean that the user will not be able to sort using the title field when they are getting back a list of books. So last but not least, if we come back into our query class, we can assign that custom sort type to our books query. So where we have our use sorting attribute, we can specify the type as book sort type. And that wires up the books query to use our custom book sort type to allow for those custom sort options. So once again, if we build and run the API, give it a few seconds to spin up, and if we go back into the browser, and if we now reload the schema, you'll notice that title now has a red squiggle under it because the field title is no longer defined by the type book sort input. And we can see that more clearly if we open up the schema reference. You can see we have our books query, and the book sort input simply has author, author ID, and ID. You'll notice that title is now missing from the book sort input. So what we are going to do now is we are going to further customize that book sort type to adjust the options available to sorting, those being ascending and descending. So if we come back into our API, and what we are going to want to do is create a new class in our project, and we're going to call this book title sort enum type. And this is going to extend the default sort enum type. like so. And then what we're going to want to do, similar to our book sort type, is override the configure method. And then we're going to say descriptor dot operation. And then we're going to say default sort operations dot ascending, like so. And what this means is any field that has this particular sort type will only be allowed to be sorted in ascending order, as opposed to ascending or descending. In order to wire this up to our book title field, we can come back into our book sort type class, and what we can do is remove the call there to ignore and replace that to a call with type. And then we can specify our type, book title sort enum type. And that wires up this book title field with our custom book title sort enum type, meaning that the only option available when sorting the book title will be to sort in ascending order, since that's the only operation that we specified in the book title sort enum type. What I'm going to do is stop and rerun the API in order to allow those changes to take effect. And if we then navigate back into Banana Cake Pop, and if we reload the schema, you'll notice the red squiggle has now disappeared because title is once again available for sorting. However, if we were to get rid of the ascending and also complete, you can see that the only option available is ascending order. Whereas if we do the same with the name of the author, we have the option to sort with either ascending order or descending order. Again, we can confirm that by navigating to the schema reference, opening up the book sort input, and you'll notice that the title is now this book title sort enum type instead of the more traditional default sort enum type. If we then open up this custom sort enum type, you'll notice that we only have ascending order available to us as opposed to ascending or descending order. So essentially that has shown you how you can add sorting into the GraphQL API by adding sorting into the GraphQL server in Startup, adding the use sorting attributes to any queries that you want sorting to be applied to, and we've also then created a custom book sort type to allow us to override the defaults when sorting books in the API. And then we've also drilled down one level further and customized the sorting options available for the title field of the book type, specifying that we only want that field to be sorted in ascending order and to remove the ability to sort by descending order. So I hope you found this video useful. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.